So welcome to New York Buddha Dharma. Welcome, Mr. Cohen. New visitor. And next week we have refuge vows, which is very exciting for me. And I'm really, I think it's wonderful that people are taking the vows. And consonant with the subject of the reading for tonight and tonight's talk, which is called Leading a Spotless Life. That was the title of the chapter. And a section of the chapter is excerpted in the beginning. It's actually towards the end of the chapter, but I just thought I'd read it. The practice of meditation is not so much concerned with the hypothetical attainment of enlightenment, but with leading a good life. In order to learn how to lead a good life, a spotless life, you need continual awareness. So, really, the subject this evening is that meditation is not something that we just do on a cushion in our private little corner of the universe, and then it's over and we walk out and start living a chaotic life in the real world. Meditation is something that we can bring throughout our lives. It's really the practice of continual open awareness, which is why once a person progresses beyond really just the beginning stages of meditation practice, we start to practice with our eyes open, because that's what we do in daily life. We're practicing awareness of our environment, of ourselves, of everything that is arising and passing away in this present moment. That is our practice. And it's to accomplish the twofold benefit, is the lingo in the teachings. The twofold benefit is the benefit of oneself and of others. Because really, being open, and that's what meditation is really all about, is being open, having an open intelligence, an open awareness, ready to embrace and dance with everything that arises, is the most generous act we can engage in for the sake of others and ourselves. For anybody. It's just a tremendous act of generosity and of benefit to other people when you are open and available and appropriate and with an open heart and an open mind and an open intelligence. Trungpa Rinpoche used to say that actually he didn't say this very much because it was almost a secret teaching, but that the main function of a teacher, of a guru, is to be open to the student. You know how it is when somebody's open, with you. You feel that they're not critical, they're not judging you, but rather they're there to appreciate and engage, with you. And it warms your heart and it makes you relax and you open and you warm to that other person and you enjoy them and you want to be friends with that other person. That's what a teacher does. The teacher opens to the student or to the students. And that encourages the students likewise to open back, just as we all do when somebody is like that with us. When somebody's warm and opening and engaging, we open back. And then this teacher will open even more. And if the student is capable, the student will open more too. This goes by a number of different names, this process. It's called, one of the names that I liked is called giving the gift of ego. That's what the student is doing. Every time they open, they're giving the gift of ego. They're giving away their ego. Oftentimes it means exposing one's ego, one's egotism, one's neurosis, which could be embarrassing. But when the teacher creates an environment that feels safe, the student can do that. And it's very liberating for the student, for the other person, because then they feel free to be who they are. They don't have to exercise their self-criticism and sort of try to control themselves and present themselves in a particular way. But they can be just who they are. And the teacher appreciates that. That's a gift. This is kind of where this open meditation leads. We do it with the eyes open. We relax into this space. We are just here, simply, with this open awareness. This is called Vipassana meditation, awareness meditation, insight meditation, it's sometimes called. And ultimately, it can be completely without reference point, completely effortless, just a complete relaxation of all effort into complete awareness in the present moment. And it's not my awareness. The awareness is kind of, it inhabits the room. It's as though it's spatial. It doesn't belong to me or to you or to any individual person. It's part of the space. And in fact, in the most advanced teachings, in the Chögyam teachings, they describe the nature of reality in a lot of different ways, but one of the main ways is as the union of yin and yeshe. This is the Tibetan. Yin is space. This space that we're sitting in the middle of right now, full of the arising and passing away of phenomena, this hand moving, the sounds coming out. And yeshe is pure knowledge, non-dual. It doesn't belong to any individual. It's just the nature of things, that everything arises in this space known, lit, as it were, as though it were glowing. In fact, another name for that knowledge is, in Tibetan, it's rung rik. Rik is another word for this non-dual knowledge, rikpa, And rung means self, that it's self-knowledge, self-known. There's no I or other knowing anything. We just relax. We don't have to do a darn thing. We just relax into this space and everything appears. Everything we need to know is there. So we can practice this sitting on the cushion. Absolutely, we just did. We fall away into thought, but then we come back sooner or later. And then the point is that you can practice it on the cushion, and that's excellent. It's kind of like a lab, when you're practicing on the cushion. Like you're in a chemistry lab, and you're making something, but then you can take what you've made, and you can take it out into real life, and you can go do it on the street. Or the analogy that he gives, it's like going to cooking class, and you learn how to cook in the class, and then you take it home and you actually cook. Or you go to police school, was an example he gave. And you learn how to be a cop, right? And you learn all these techniques about how to use your truncheon and whatever, I don't know what the cops learn. But then you take it out on the street and you are a cop, and you do it. And that's the analogy. Or you're learning how to be a soldier. And you go to training camp, boot camp, and you learn all the things it takes to be a soldier, how to march and, salute and shoot your gun and all that stuff, polish your shoes. And then you have to take it out and actually be a soldier. So what we're doing, that's the relationship between sitting practice and meditation practice, meditation in action. taking it out into the street, that we could practice this awareness on the subway. We can practice it as Carrie does, when he takes it out into 42nd Street, for those 42nd Street sits. But we can do it all the time, and you don't have to be sitting. You can be walking around, talking with somebody, having a cup of coffee, and practicing your relaxed, open-hearted awareness. It's a tremendous act of generosity. I've been talking with people here and outside of here who are dealing with people who are mentally ill. We all have this in our orbits. And one of the best things that you can do for a person who's mentally disturbed is simply be there for them. Be aware. Be present. Everybody sets the language they use. To be present. Because then the person feels they can trust you. They know exactly what they've got. They don't have to be self-protective. Don't have to worry about how to be. As they begin to trust that openness that you can, and open awareness that you can demonstrate. This is the meaning of Vipassana meditation, and it's what we're doing, what we practice here on the cushion, and we can take it out into our daily lives. He says, when you finish a sitting meditation session, that is when the actual practice begins. It is a question of heedfulness. Look at what you are doing. You could practice that anytime. Post-meditation, it's a funny word for it, jetop in Tibetan. It's funny, post-meditation, it sounds like it's something you do after you've really meditated on the cushion. But that's the real meditation. That's where you become, or if you will, a Buddha. More than that, when we begin to open our minds and drop our ambition, our personal self-ambition and self-aggrandizement, which is what happens when you begin to sort of rest in this present moment, then you actually begin to become much more intelligent and aware of what's going on. I took coach training a bunch of years ago, and they taught how to listen to a client. And there are 3 levels of listening that they described and had you experience. The first level is you're sitting talking to somebody, and they say, well, I just came back from England. And you say, oh, I was in England 3 months ago. How often do we do that? Right? You're sitting and somebody says something and you think, what can I say next that out of my experience, right? That's self-referential listening. The second kind of listening, which is much better, is kind of the shamatha of listening. And the analogy they gave was 2 lovers sitting at a candlelit dinner, and they are totally focused on each other, like a beam of attention. It's focus. That's shamatha, focus, one-pointed focus. And the third, and the best kind of listening for a coach to exercise, there are books about this, is that you sit there and you are really attentive to that other person in 3 or 4 dimensions, spatially and in time. You're just open, you're aware. It's like it's Vipassana. You're aware of that person in space. And when you do that, you can really start to hear what's going on inside that other person in a way that you may not have done before. You can take a really good look. What's going on in them? And feel it. And you use what people call, it always sounded like voodoo to me, but it isn't anymore, intuition. That is, you can feel what's going on. You can almost imagine what they're thinking or what's produced the current style that this person is manifesting. Maybe they are going through some period of angst. Maybe they've just had a wonderful afternoon, and you can feel that calm and that peace. But it requires that we open our minds, let go of our self-reference, and be really, really present. And when we do that, we begin to see the world in a much more intelligent, sensitive, and appreciative way. And we begin to step into what in the teachings is called sacred world. And that is that this world that we live in is fundamentally of value for no reason at all. Usually we're sort of looking for reasons for everything. For what we do and what we think and what we feel and what we say and how we're going to act. But in Vipassana you give that up. You just come present. You have this open, intelligent, appreciative mind. And the world begins to emerge in a very different way. Trungpa Rinpoche called it becoming aware of basic goodness, that this world is fundamentally, basically wholesome, worth being here for. Everything, including the dog shit in the street, including death. All of it is worth being here for and participating. That it's fundamentally of value for no reason. So this is the doorway into it, this kind of practice, this open-minded, open-hearted, tremendously generous to other people kind of practice. He says, you can bring awareness to anything. The point is that you should be wakeful every minute in every situation and not just slide or lose your awareness. Anybody? Yeah. But it's a wonderful ambition to have. You know, and not only that, but we can get better at it. He says, mindfulness practice, that's this practice we're talking about, this is kind of advanced mindfulness, is not just about what is happening to you individually and personally. It is about how much you are going to transmit your sanity and your insanity to the rest of the world. So wouldn't it be a lot better to be transmitting our sanity? He says it's not about calming down and soothing yourself. Then he gives some advice on how to do it. He talks about taking pride in being a human being and a practitioner. He calls it positive arrogance. But it's an arrogance that's completely silent. It's like it's joyful. It's like you could enjoy being able to come present. It's so full of life. He says, flashes of wakefulness occur. Disown them and let them go. You don't try to hold on to them, those flashes of wakefulness. You just see them, disown them, and let them go. That's kind of what we're doing when we go out with the out-breath. And at the end, there's a gap. You see it and you disown it. You let it go. Don't try to hold on to anything. And you're just here in the space without holding on, without labeling, without appreciating, without grasping. He says, you need to maintain continuity in your awareness from the cushion to post-meditation. He says, even things out. Have a good time all over the place. We're so hard on ourselves. And then he talks about how you can extend it to every aspect of your life. You know, when we do Datun practice, Datun, that's sitting for a month, which we used to do in the Shambhala world, and they still do them. I don't know what's going on now. I haven't done one in a long time, but you eat oryoki. Oryoki is a Japanese form that Trungpa Rinpoche saw at Zen Center and loved. And what it is a ritualized form of eating so that you can not just sit there and sort of slurp your food down, but you actually pay attention to everything that you're doing. It becomes an act of meditation. I always felt about him, it was like watching somebody doing tea ceremony, whatever he was doing, which is another meditative act, that when he picked up a glass, there was such a feeling of awareness. When he smoked a cigarette, the way he moved his hands, I felt he was a living demonstration of this kind of continual awareness. I'll just close by telling you a story about him one time. I was sleeping in the same house with him for a while, and one night he woke me up in the middle of the night. Couldn't sleep. He wasn't asleep anyhow. He wanted to talk. So I sort of groggily dragged myself out into the kitchen, and we sat under a dim lamp. And he said to me, "You know how people have flashes of enlightenment?" And I said, "Yes, I know how that is, He said, "I have flashes of samsara." And he was looking at me and he says, "I like them. They're entertaining." I mean, what do you do with that? Then, a couple of years later, I was sitting with him in an office at Karmadzong in Boulder. And out of the clear blue, he says, "Do you remember how a while ago I told you I was having flashes of samsara?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember that." He said, "They've stopped. I miss them." I mean, this is possible. This is possible. And I think it's possible for ordinary people. I really do. I think that there are other people that I've known in my life who weren't Buddhist Rinpoches, who are just ordinary people who are very, very, very present and aware, one way or another. I think we can meet these people. In fact, someone once asked Rinpoche, they said, "Have you ever met somebody that you felt was enlightened who wasn't a Buddhist?" And he described when he was in England, before he came to the United States, one day he was in a park and he sat down on a bench and struck up a conversation with a kind of bum, a hobo, sitting on the bench. And he said, "What do you do with your life?" And the guy said, "Well, I just travel around." He said, "Sometimes I'm here in England, sometimes I'm in Europe." And Rinpoche said, described saying to him, "Do you enjoy your life?" And the fellow answered, "Somehow that question doesn't seem to arise." Rinpoche said he thought that was a very enlightened answer to give. It's very uncompromising, really, this thing of, it's a matter of waking up and being real. And there's no achievement in it. There's nobody who's going to give us a gold star. But then he says, that quote that I read, it's really about how to live a spotless life. A good life. A life that's here in the present, appreciative, intelligent, and how to be of benefit, really of benefit to other people. I mean, it's the ultimate kindness, don't you think? So I think that that's all I'm going to say about this reading. And we could have a discussion if you like.
So when you're saying that we have to be aware all the time, and having a spotless life is being aware all the time. So when we're doing something bad, but when we are aware of it, is it possible, like, to be aware while you are doing something bad?
What's something bad?
I don't know. I mean, being angry.
Being angry?
Yeah.
Well, you tell me. And when you're angry, are you aware?
Well, yeah, I realize that I'm angry.
You do?
Yeah, and I realize that I'm doing something wrong, but it's not spotless life when I'm angry, even if I realize it. Or when I want to smoke a cigarette, it's bad for myself, and I know it, and I still do it. So what's going on there?
Let's talk about anger first. There are sort of two different modalities for anger. I'm going to give you the theory, okay? Buddhist teachings. Neurotic and enlightened. The neurotic anger, we lose our minds. We are not aware. I mean, there's an awareness that you're being angry, but you're out of control. You know, you can't stop yourself. You're caught up in a story about this person said that, and they did this to me, and I'm going to get even, and you know, whatever it might be. And you can't stop it. You know, you sort of have a momentum, right? A forward momentum. You're sort of the prisoner of this dream of I and other. And the I has been hurt, and you're angry towards the other that hurt you. Now that's sort of the unenlightened version. And in that version, you're very much caught up in thoughts. In fact, you're caught up in karma. Because the anger that you're expressing and the hurt that you're feeling has been conditioned. It's coming out of your past. You know, you've been conditioned to be hurt by this particular kind of event. You know. I mean, for instance, I'm very sensitive to anti-Semitic slurs, you know. Now, if someone called me a stupid Jew, you know, or a kike or something like that, and they weren't Jewish especially, let's say they weren't, you know, I'd be hurt, I'd take offense. But if I called you a stupid Jew, you wouldn't be offended in the same way because you're not Jewish. It comes out of my past, you see. I've experienced that in the past, you know, that kind of discrimination, and so I've been sensitized to it. Each one of us has these sore spots that have been planted in us and made us sensitive. And when somebody sticks their finger in them, they hurt and we get angry. Now they say, though, you see, and these things, they're habitual. In other words, that sensitivity, it arises again and again and again, given the proper stimulus. But if you bring your awareness to it, your meditation practice to it, and you see it really with vipassana, with this kind of awareness, you can begin over time to free yourself from that kind of reactivity so that it ceases to trigger you. This is one of the functions of meditation. It's called burning up karma. The karma, you see, is that habitual reactivity, a story, you know, that you carry around that comes to life when the conditions are right and entraps you. And by bringing it to your awareness, you can begin to burn that up and free yourself from that kind of mindless reactivity. uncontrolled reactivity. But it takes a while. This is described in the Buddhist teachings. This is the Yogacharans, the mind-only schools, describe this very well. And I keep referencing Thich Nhat Hanh's book. He wrote a book where he did a terrific job. You see, these teachings were first put forth in the 7th century by a couple of brothers who were great Buddhists, Sangha and Vasubandhu. And Vasubandhu wrote these texts in verse. And so they're called things like the Treatise on Mind Only in 30 stanzas. So Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book about this whole subject, karma, and he wrote it in verse, sort of paying homage to Vasubandhu, as it were. And then he wrote a commentary to it. It's really beautiful. It used to be called Transformation at the Base, and now it's called something about mind. They've retitled it. But it's a great book about how karma functions, traps us, and how we deal with it, how we deal with it with the practice of, you could call it meditation, but really it's a matter of waking up to what we're doing and seeing it clearly. Now, on the other side, enlightened people, they say, will manifest anger in an enlightened way because it's appropriate and it is for the benefit of the other people around them. And I have a friend, Greg Smith. He's an artist, paints tonkas, lives at Shambhala Mountain Center, an old dog Buddhist. And I heard him give a talk once, and he was talking about this enlightened anger. See, this enlightened anger is personified. We don't have any tonkas here. Mahakala, yeah. Do we have a Mahakala? Huh? Yeah, but she's not wrathful. Huh? See, there are deities that you can see that are depicted that are wrathful deities, like the Mahakala. The Mahakala is black. He's got fangs, I mean, he's got, flaming eyes, and, he's carrying weapons. Do we have one? We might have a... Oh, there. Down in the lower corner of that tanka. That's the tanka of the Karmapa. There's a wrathful deity down there. You can take a look at it afterwards. And so Greg was giving a talk on enlightened wrath. Wrath, as the English say it, which Rinpoche used to call it. And he said, and this is like a pale version of it, right? He said, it's like a mother is standing on the street curb with her child, and the child is about to step off into traffic, and she screams, "Get back!" It's for the benefit of that sentient being. Well, it's even more intelligent and less reactive than that. And I just remember seeing Trungpa Rinpoche once get angry. I was sitting with him in a room, and these people burst in, having a furious fight. It was actually his wife and another woman. And instantly, it's like his eyes were like popping out of his head, It's like the anger came out of him, and it roared, and these people were like blown back through the door. And the door shut. And then he turned to me and looked at me with this big grin. I was scared. So, I mean, yes, they're both things. Does that answer the question, or begin to answer it? I mean, we're trapped when we get neurotically angry, caught in a dream. Something from our past has triggered us. And we can't do much, because if we try and... You see, here's another teaching. They say of the emotions, like anger, pride, jealousy, lust, greed. These are the neurotic emotions. They're called kleshas, defilements. And when one begins to understand reality, which is emptiness in this present moment, that there is no I and other, that all of this is arising spontaneously, like images in a mirror that we're sitting in. This is called shunyata. And when the bodhisattva begins to really live there, then the kleshas, the defilements, are what they call transformed. And they're transformed into wisdom, into wisdoms, different wisdoms, one for each of the kleshas. And there are 5 main kleshas in this scheme, and each one is transformed into a different wisdom. But they are only transformed by the power of our awareness. And we're talking about the same kind of awareness we've been talking about all night. It's just that as it develops deeper and deeper in us, the more we come back to the present, the more we let go of our dreams of I and other and rest here in the present, shift our allegiance from thoughts to this present, then that transformation begins to happen. But it's a huge shift of allegiance because we give our loyalty to these dreams, these schemes of I and other, and we live them as though they were really real when they're just dreams. So the path is really a matter of coming back to this present moment again and again. That's our practice. Matt.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm interested in what you say because before I started practicing meditation, which has only been a short while now really for me, I used to get myself in a right pickle. I'd get myself all like angry with certain things, and since I've been practicing, I find myself just let it go. It just goes. Don't even go there anymore. I'm like, and I used to get myself in a right old state. I'd be like get into confrontations, and also, but then obviously straight afterwards, total regret of what I've done. And some bad things. And but yeah, it's interesting now. Classically, I was cycling this morning to work, and a guy just cut me up real in the car. I would have just gone for him before, and now I'm just like, bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, I hope you get your donut quicker than I do. It's just so yeah. So it's amazing how. It just goes from you, without even thinking about it. It's incredible.
One? Oh, did you say so? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah.
Then one.
I don't know if it's just a matter of linguistics or what, but when talking about Trungpa Rinpoche being self-awareness with the way he would smoke a cigarette or do whatever. What is how do you distinguish between self-awareness and the concept of self?
And concept of self?
Yeah. Is it just the point of, I'm more comfortable with the point of being conscious?
That's a great question. Actually, I think self-awareness is a misnomer.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about being aware of yourself, right?
Yeah.
When the real awareness that we're practicing here is letting go of any fixation on I, that story that we tell about I. That doesn't mean we become unaware of, this. But we drop the stories that constantly go through our mind, just for a second. Every time we come present, fully present into the present moment, I is gone. There's no room for it because I is a dream. It's a statement. That is made in time. And when we come present, there's no room for it. So that's a good point.
Yeah, so for me, I'm more comfortable with the idea of being conscious, without the word self.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. One.
The word spotless just triggers some memory of a movie that I've seen. It's called Eternal Sunshine and the Spotless Mind.
Yes.
It's about this guy, going through a very heartbreaking breakup with a girlfriend, and then he just wants to erase a memory of her. So then he went to a doctor, and then the doctor erased every memory.
He said what?
The doctor just erased all the memory of her. Mm-hmm. And then the girlfriend did the same thing, and they meet again, and they fall in love again. So it's just like, it's a samsara and karma in the memory, or where's the location of the samsara? Is you in your memory, or And
where's it in samsara? Is it in memory, you're asking?
Yeah, this personal samsara, is in the memory, and where is the memory located in our brain, in our, because it's a fictional, it's a movie, but what the movie says is really interesting, that they erase each other's memory, and then they meet on the street again, and they fell in love again.
Well, first of all, I've never encountered anybody who claimed that they could erase memory so precisely and selectively without doing incredible damage to a human being's brain.
That's it.
So we got science fiction here. It was a wonderful movie. It was what's his name, that screenwriter? Charlie Kaufman. Kaufman. What's his name? First name?
Charlie.
I don't think it's Charlie, but it is Kaufman. Maybe it is. Andy Kaufman? Yeah, I think it's it. Yeah, it is Kaufman.
It's starring Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right. And then Kaufman also made that movie, he wrote the movie Adaptation.
Right.
Right. And
what about the Malkovich movies?
being John Malkovich. Yeah, those are all Kaufman movies. But
The other one about the orchid, or is that?
That's the one.
Okay. I'm sorry.
it's okay. Here, so let me address one. The real issue is that I'll give you the schema, okay, that is given. And that is that neurotic mind of ego has 8 aspects. The first 5 are the senses. Eye, ear, nose. So the mind sees visual objects through the organ of the eye. We won't get into any detail here. It's not actually the eyeball, but that doesn't matter. And the ear hears sounds through the organ of the ear, and so forth. And those are 5. Those are 5 of those 8. The 6th is the mind itself, which perceives mental events. Okay? And then there's the 7th and the 8th. The 8th is called the Aula, which means storehouse. And you got to understand, these things don't actually exist. These are different aspects of how mind works. And so they're functions, you might say. And the Aula, if you have any event, but let's say a traumatic event, the memory of that event is stored in your Aula. And it's stored there in potential, because after a while, you won't be thinking about that trauma. The thing that happened to you, how you broke your leg, But the memory of it is there, and if you see somebody with a broken leg, it might trigger that memory, and the memory comes to consciousness, right, out of the Aula. So they say these memories are stored as seeds in the Aula. And those seeds have particular characteristics, qualities. So, for instance, if you were a soldier and you were wounded in war, you might come back with PTSD, and you've got a terrifically bad memory of trauma stored in your Aula. And that traumatic memory perfumes. The term is vasana. This is all technical lingo for this, but it perfumes the Aula. Which means that if you meet somebody, let's say I meet this person who's got this traumatic event stored there, and they're not even thinking about it, because it was years ago. But I can feel, I can sense, especially if I'm listening the way I described, with my open mind, I can sense that person there's something going on there, some kind of trauma stored deep in them. You can feel it sometimes with people. The Aula is full of these seeds, and they perfume the Aula and sort of make it so that you are constantly, those perfumes are coming out, even when you're not thinking about those events. Then what happens is something triggers that memory, say a car crash, and suddenly that person who was wounded in the war, all that memory of the trauma of the wound comes flooding back. And it's very traumatic for them, perhaps more so than another person having a car crash. So this is the way karma, and then you react to the current events through the filter of that revived memory. And that new reaction creates a new set of events which are also stored in the Aula and will again condition how you react in the future. See, it's like a rolling thing. Now, also the Aula just kicks stuff out. So you're sitting there doing nothing, drinking a cup of tea, and all of a sudden you have a memory of your mother screaming at you, or this wonderful thing that happened to you, something that's stored in the Aula pops to mind. Or at night when you're dreaming, the Aula is kicking out seeds. Or else something triggers them. Something appears in your daily life that reminds you and triggers that memory from the Aula, and then you might react inappropriately because you're seeing perhaps a threat or an opportunity where one doesn't exist, conditioned by your past.
How do we go to the Aulas?
How do we go to it?
Yeah.
By meditating. Because when you meditate, you create an open space of boredom. And that open space invites stuff to come up from the Aula. And when it does, you apply your mindfulness to it. That's what we're doing. You don't try and get rid of it, just when you see a thought. See, these thoughts are being kicked out by the Aula. And the idea is that the way in which you burn up those habits from the Aula is simply by seeing them, by applying awareness to them. If you react to them, if you climb into them, then you reinforce them. So you just see them, you let them go. And you do that over and over and over again. And Thich Nhat Hanh describes this in his book. You wear through them until eventually they stop arising. But it might take a long time, or not.
I know there was this, just a few seconds, this analogy of walking through a road, that there's a hole there, and then there's I think that's a poem. Like I walked down the road, there's a hole, and I fell down and climbed up, and I go on. And then the second verse is I walk down the same road again, there's a hole, I fell down again, and I climb up again, and I proceed. And the third stanza is the same thing, for like many endless stanza, And then so the last stanza of it is like, I woke up and I walk another road. Okay, so like, how do we go to that another road without falling to, because this habit is just like a track going on the same road again. You see it, but you jump into it, and you're falling, you see yourself falling into it, It's the same thing, the momentum, the habits and everything. And just it's the alias, the place, where there's no momentum of
where what?
Momentum of the previous event, or to go there and just to disrupt the momentum. You were talking about the wrathful anger. It's why is it so powerful because it disrupts the momentum of the thing that's going on. You're saying Rinpoche see this, they were talking about that, and all of a sudden he used this wrathful anger. So it's a disruption,
Destruction?
Disruption. Of that kind of momentum. Without that kind of breath, there's not enough energy to disrupt a habit or a thing that has been going on for a while. You need that kind of energy in a rep, in a way.
The only way is by practicing awareness. That's how we wake up from unconscious habit. Otherwise, we are the victims of our habits because we enact them again and again without being aware of it. So we practice awareness, and that's what we're doing here on the cushion, and it has an effect slowly. I mean, Matt was saying that he notices an effect in his life. I think if you practice regularly, a minimum of a half an hour a day, you will begin to notice an effect in your life. Huh? Wait a minute. Mike.
I understand what you're trying to say. Like you can only get hit so many times until you learn to box. You have to put your hands up, and you see those things coming towards you, and you've got to defend yourself. So you learn the moves. You duck out the way. You see those holes in the corridor, in the path. See them coming. Dodge out the way. So, meditation is the dodge out the way. That's the defense. That's your duck, your move,
Did you want to say something, Rochelle?
Yeah, I was thinking about Sigmund Freud.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, but Sigmund Freud. I hate to talk about this, but that's what I was thinking about. When early in his career, he was working with a lot of women who suffered from hysteria. And he discovered they all had one thing in common, which was sexual abuse as a child. And he wrote a paper about it. And he published it. But his colleagues were very upset because they didn't want, because they were all men, didn't want to be associated with that. So because of peer pressure, he changed it to penis envy, that the women were suffering from penis envy. I mean, he could have changed the course of history, not only with women, but boys, children, of how horrible it is for a child to experience something like that. But because he was, even though he was trying to be a psychiatrist and help people, he was really living in samsara. And when you live in samsara, no matter what role you're playing, whether you're a priest or a monk, or a tulku or whoever you are, you're going to mislead people and hurt people deeply. And that's what Sigmund Freud did under the cloak of being a psychiatrist, a doctor, someone that you really, want to trust. Anyway, that's the pitfall of samsara. So no matter who you are, at whatever level it is of practice, you always have to examine. They say when you go to sleep at night, you lie in bed and you examine what you've done that day. You examine yourself. And if you notice that you've maybe taken a little twist or turn here or there, you vow not to do that again, and then start fresh the next day. So, it's not an easy path, but I think the path of meditation is certainly a lot more straightforward than trying to cover things up because of your own ego. So
it's also there's the flip side of that, which is that Trungpa Rinpoche and Tibetans in general look at us and marvel at how self-critical we are. That Westerners tend to be very hard on themselves. And so with meditation practice, we might begin to actually appreciate our wisdom as well. I remember I did my first retreat in about 1970 or 71. And I went up into the mountains for 3 weeks. And I came out and I was talking with Trungpa Rinpoche, and I said, I really felt like I made some progress with my meditation, like I understood something. And he said, yeah, that's great. And then I said, but maybe I'm just sort of fooling myself, And he looked at me and he said, oh no. He said, you're so hard on yourself. If you say something positive, I know it's true. But it wasn't just me. It's Westerners in general. So we tend to be self-critical, which is sort of a flip side of another kind of ambition. It's just a way of, we want to get better, but we're pessimistic about it. Well, maybe we ought to end here. Next week, Oh yeah, did you have something? I'm sorry, Isabel. Please.
No, I just, this awareness, we all want to be aware all the time, right? And then there's like the two obstacles to that. One is what you just said, is like a lack of confidence in our ability that we think that we could, be that person, like that is one, and the other one is that we just forget, right? We forget to be aware.
We do indeed. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? It's heartbreaking. But we can keep working at it, and every time we come back, it's good. Yeah. Okay, well, so next week we have Refuge House, and I think it's going to be terrific. I hope you can come and bring friends to witness it. We've got 6 or 8 refugees. I forget. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we got 6. 6 refugees. Yeah, that's right. No, yeah, I think everybody's here. Yeah. So I'm very excited about it. That's really a terrific act. And I think that we should start saying the refuge at the beginning of each meeting. The refuge and the bodhicitta. You see, in normal Buddhist practice, a practice session, which is what this is not complete unless you start with taking refuge and then the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means that you're vowing to work for the benefit of others as well as yourself, and it's an act of generosity. And then we close with the dedication of merit. And I'm going to come in with chants next week. People have been taking the dedication of merit home, which is great, but we've only got a few copies left. So we'll give it to people who really need it here. And you can share it if you would. You know it? Anybody there? Okay, great. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.